I'm here in Eugene, Oregon, and I'm with Tara Abernathy. And where are you, Tara?
I'm in Duluth, Minnesota right now. I live in
Duluth,
Vancouver,
Minnesota.
BC, though.
What's the time difference between Eugene and Vancouver, BC?
2 hours. I'm 2 hours ahead.
2 hours ahead? Okay. I'd like Vancouver. Okay, you're gonna have to help me geographically here. I'm challenged today. Vancouver is on the coast or near
Just
me?
up the west coast. We're right
Because
on
I'm
the.
certain I've been to Vancouver, and okay, so you're right up, right. I can drive up and visit you in about 8 hours or something like that.
Yeah,
We can meet in
probably.
Seattle. Okay, just check. I
Mhm.
was thinking, now someone's on the East Coast, but let me figure it out. Okay, Time to Wine is a live broadcast on the second and fourth Monday of the month at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. I interview experts in wine, social media marketing, leadership, and marketing. The live stream broadcast is starting to queue up almost on a weekly basis, but currently is on the first and third Friday of the month at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. And I'm getting in a position where it's going to be on a weekly basis. Tara Abernathy is a French culture expert with an outstanding knowledge of French wines, producers, and regions. And we're going to talk a little bit about her background as well as her wine tours, her current work, etc., how she's dealt with COVID. So, Tara, tell us a little bit about your background.
Well, I am currently teaching high school. I teach French immersion, and recently added Spanish. I've been doing this for about 14 years in North Vancouver. It's at a school that does English track and French immersion. So we teach a wide variety of subjects in French, not just French language. Also, I started Elegance, my company, in 2017 to provide clients with authentic cultural experiences in old world wine regions. And if not, they're not able to travel, then I bring those experiences to them via tutored tastings. So a bit of a presentation about the region that we'd be tasting wines from, and a variety of wines from that region, and giving some pairings that are the local fare with the wines, and just creating that authentic experience in Vancouver if they can't travel to the regions that I have set up.
Oh, that's really interesting. Now, did you originally study French in college, or how did you start with your French studies?
I grew up in the US, so I started in grade 8. And I took French, was obsessed with it, so was my best friend. And we always did our French homework first and translated all of our favorite songs into French. And then I continued on with it in university. And I had an amazing teacher who really inspired me to study abroad. So I did one of the years of my undergrad in Toulouse in France. And that's where my passion for wine and for culture and the language started, and continue to use it in my life every day.
And I was teaching study abroad in Italy, so I've been to Italy 12 times, and I really enjoy. I like both cultures. I've been to France too, but I really like. I'm really missing Europe right now, so I'm trying to manifest that back into my repertoire.
I am
So,
too.
so what is your current work that you're doing?
I'm
Did we
teaching
just cover that?
French, and then I'm running Vin Elegance, and I also am an ambassador for another company as of March of this year, and it's called Vinaya Love, and it's an app that's actually just launching on Google Play today. It was on the App Store for a bit, and so now we're on both, and it's an app that is dating for wine lovers, and also social media for people in the wine industry, and a way to network if you want to increase your wine industry contacts. So it's a little bit of all of the above, and we'll be conducting some wine events. And I will be conducting wine events for Vin Elegance as well. And I'm currently on summer vacation right now from teaching, so I'll be focusing more on my business and the ambassador role for the summer.
So you have sort of a summer business, and then you teach the rest of the year, which is really nice. And are you? What I was going to ask you about that is, are you? Um, I'll ask you. I'll think about it in just a minute. I had something I was going to ask. So tell us a little bit more detail about your wine and culture tours that you've been doing for students, and that you're also doing with Vin Elegance.
So for students, I've taken students to Nice and to different parts of northern France and Spain. I did organize a trip to Peru for last year, but it got canceled 2 days before we were going to go because of COVID. So that one didn't pan out. But we've had successful trips to Nice and to Paris, Brittany, to the Mont Saint Michel, and in Normandy as well, and Versailles, and then added Barcelona onto that. And the students stay in hotel for part of the time and then in host families for the other part of the time, so they get an authentic experience. And some of them have said that that was their best experience of high school, was doing those trips. And for Vin Elegance, I've got partnerships set up in Champagne, Burgundy, which is Bourgogne, Provence, and also the Rhone Valley. And so those tours involve different cultural activities depending on which area you're visiting. My aim is to provide smaller custom tours for 6 to 10 people. So it depends on the interests of the group. And if, for example, we go to Champagne, the main things to focus on there is like the chalk soils and the champagne caves and the technique of how they produce champagne. Also, if we go to Reims, which is one of the main cities in Champagne, there's the cathedral there where the French kings were crowned for quite some time. And then there's a lot of culinary experiences to have in Champagne as well. Whereas Burgundy is really big. It starts in Chablis, which is near Champagne. And then the next section of Burgundy would be Côte de Nuit, which is near Dijon. Then there's another section a bit further south called Côte de Beaune, and that's around the city of Beaune. That's where I did my wine training. And then further south than that, there's Côte Chalonnaise and Le Mâconnais. And so all of those make up Burgundy. So there's quite a few sections to explore. The main varietals are Pinot Noir and Chardonnay. And there's some really amazing producers there. There's small production in Burgundy for the most part, because the Napoleonic Code has caused the people that own the domaines, that's the name of the wineries, the domaines, they pass them down from generation to generation, but every person in the family inherits equal amount of the property. That's from the Napoleonic Code. So the parcels of land get smaller and smaller per person. So they're very different from producer to producer and parcel to parcel in Burgundy. So it's interesting to see the difference in all the different regions. It's also a huge culinary cultural experience there as well. And then in Beaune, there's some museums. There's also Les Hospices de Beaune. It's a museum now to go in and see, but it was a hospital that was a charity hospital for people, which was very rare at the time it was created in the late 15th century. And it's beautiful. It has the Burgundian tiles on the outside of the building. And so that's a must-see. Also, there's tours on the river, so you can go from Burgundy to the Rhone on a boat. And then also biking tours are really nice in Burgundy because there's the Route des Grands Crus, which is a bike path and a route that goes through all of the really amazing high-end wine vineyards. And it's just beautiful. It's breathtaking.
Mm-hmm. Do you plan this all out, or does someone on that side plan it for you?
Both. So I have like partnerships with people that are local because they like you to, hire people that are local as well when you're there. So like the transportation and things are hired by local people. I also did my internship with a woman that conducts tours. And so for certain tours, I have her work with us. And then I have colleagues that I made friends with during my program. And they have wineries that are amazing and conduct different activities with those as well.
Oh, that just sounds fabulous. Do you take adults, or are you still just taking high school students right now?
I have only taken the high school students recently, but I'd like to start taking adults again now that the pandemic is um, like clearing up a bit and travel's opening up. So
Is travel to France and Italy, is it open for tours now, or is it still on lockdown?
I am not sure because I haven't, I knew I wouldn't be able to go this month. So I'm going to be looking more into that. But I know I won't be able to take any trips until spring break of next year would be the earliest. So I can do one in spring break time and then however many, several throughout the summer because I have 2 months there. Usually I require people to get their flights to France and then I meet them there. We can set something up in Paris for a night or two. There's lots of things to explore there and then move on from there or just head straight to the different wine regions.
Okay, that sounds fabulous. So tell us a little bit about your wine training. I know you've got some wonderful French wine training, and do you have Italian wine training also? So let's
Yes, I
talk
do.
about that. That's interesting.
So I first went to Beaune in Burgundy to study wine, and I went to a place called the CFPPA, and that's their main wine school. It's their they do different programs there, but the one I did was courses in the international wine trade, and you have to have a master's degree to get accepted into that program. And it was 3.5 months of intensive courses, so from 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. every day, and included some travel to different areas. So Champagne, Chablis, Bordeaux, South Africa. We did 2 weeks in South Africa, and it was really amazing. We went to a lot of winery visits in Burgundy and Bordeaux and Champagne and all over. Wherever we went, we did a lot of those, but we also had intensive training in the classroom and learning about winemaking, viticulture, the different styles of wine, and the different appellations, the wine law, everything like that. So that was 3.5 months. And then I had a month and a half internship in Pommard. And that was in wine exporting and importing. So that was interesting as well. I worked with an export agent, and so I got to meet a lot of the producers she had in her portfolio. And she works with setting up the wineries with the importers in the US. So I live in Canada, so there's no conflict as far as competition. So we have a good connection and we work together a lot on things. So then there's also when I came back, I did the Wine Scholar Guild training in the French Wine Scholar program
Mhm.
and the Italian Wine Scholar program. So those are intensive courses too that you have to have a specific level of wine training. Usually they say WSET level 3 minimum to
Mhm.
do those courses. And so I did them as night classes once a week. And so we got to taste a bunch of different wines and meet connections in the industry. It was really amazing. The course is really well planned out and I learned a lot. So it
Do
was
you,
great.
do you have a WeSet 3?
The courses I did in France are like on par with that or higher. So
Okay.
yeah.
I have a 2, so I need to go for the 3, and then I'm interested, and then the ones you were doing, there's a little bit of a delay. Let's see if we can
Okay.
I hear a delay a little bit, but the ones that you were doing in France, what is the time length that it takes to do those
For the courses,
for the courses?
it was 3.5 months for my program, but
Okay.
they have different programs offered through the school.
Okay, so different lengths of time. So we've talked a little bit about your business. Do you have other things that you want to elaborate on with Vin Elegance? Or have we
Sure.
covered that?
Yeah. So basically, I also offer consulting to individuals if they want to organize an event, what types of wines to select, or for their own personal collection, and also for investing as well. So that's another service that's offered. Can also do private tastings, and eventually I want to add some corporate tastings in there, and I want to create a wine club also. So it's kind of been steps in progress. Just keep wanting to expand, and I want to add on some new regions as well in France and Italy. I have 3 set up in Italy, and then I want to add the Loire Valley and Bordeaux next for France.
That sounds fabulous. I have a situation where I've got community members. So when I started doing those big international tours, I took 212 students to Europe over a period of 4 years, but I guess the last one I did 166 or something like that. So I was full of, so there was a saying, "Can you take us to Europe?" Then I've had universities asking me to take students to Europe, and then I've had executives saying, "Can you?" There people that aren't. I have a lot of people that aren't particularly knowledgeable about wine, but are very interested in going and learning about wine casually. So we should talk about, or and then I have a lot of people asking in South Africa if I can bring people to South Africa. So I need to talk to them and see how if things are open and probably get going on that again. So talk about you're an ambassador for. I'm going to make sure I'm saying it right. You speak French. Vinaya Love, is that correct? Or am I
Vinaya
off?
Love, yeah.
Vinaya Love. Vinaya Love. Okay, talk about your ambassadorship for Vinaya Love, the dating app for wine lovers,
That's
which sounds
correct.
very exciting. Okay, go ahead.
So it's the only app of its kind in the world, a dating app for wine lovers. And it's not just for dating, but it's a great way for wine lovers to find love. It's also for social media, so meeting people with like-minded interests. So wine or different things around wine, could be travel. Also, it's really good to expand your connections in the wine industry if you're in the industry or looking to be in the industry. And it's for me, for my role, I'm maintaining and managing the Vinaya Love Canada Facebook page, also contributing to the Twitter, which is at Vinaya Love World, and the Instagram, which is at Vinaya Love Official _official. And so sometimes adding to those, and then also I'm responsible for getting press, which will be happening now that we're launching and that everything's rolling out. And also we're creating events. So some tastings for networking, and some Vinaya Love Nights, they're called, which is dating events to get people out and mingling and get to know each other and to generate awareness around the app. It's a great app for people that like to travel or people that are in the industry that have to travel for work. So easy way to meet up with like-minded people or people that you know are connected. And that can suggest a great wine bar or a place to go and just meet up with somebody that if you're alone when you're traveling, things like that. So.
Oh, that's great. Okay, so tell us, do you have favorite wines or producers from different regions or appellations? And if so, who are they and which ones?
So my general tastes are that I love Burgundy wines and Champagne, but I also love a lot of other regions and other countries and everything. So I'm always looking to try new wines. But of Burgundy, I really love, there's a few producers that really stand out for me. So one of them is Domaine Rouleau. It's Roulot. They are very well known as well. It's a producer out of Meursault, which is in the Côte de Beaune area, so in the kind of in the middle of Burgundy. And Meursault is a very sought after area for Chardonnay. And this producer is amazing, and it's basically considered cult wines that come from this producer. And you can hardly even buy wines at the winery because they're exported and already on order for the different fine dining restaurants around France and everything. So the importer that imports them to the US is Kermit Lynch, and he's kind of one of the pioneers of importing wines in the US. But Domaine Rouleau, I cannot say enough positive about their wines. It's just a beautiful example of Meursault. And then there's Domaine Moissannet Bonheur, and that's in Pommard. So again, in Côte de Beaune, it's a Pinot Noir based wine. Well, Pinot is straight Pinot Noir. And they have a really amazing range of wines. And they host people at the domaine as well for open house and do pairings with the wines. And Emmanuelle Sophie is the winemaker, and she's brilliant. So it's nice that there's a female winemaker. Her father was in charge before her. He's still around helping out and everything. And it's an amazing family-run winery, very successful, very elegant wines.
So I have a quick, I'm sorry, I have a quick question for you.
Mhm.
So wine is an incredibly involved, intensive subject, as you know. How do you remember? You know, I've tasted hundreds and hundreds of wine, and someone says, "What's your favorite?" How do you remember what's your favorite, or what you? And I know you've done lots of studies, and I need to do more studying. But even when you study, it's so intensive to understand. Is this a nice wine? Is this not a nice wine? What would you say some of your tips there on studying wine, or how you differentiate what's a great wine and what isn't a great wine?
For me, it's all about if it's a balanced wine. So if you have a balanced wine, you're not having too much alcohol where you'd feel it in your throat. It would be like more burny if there's too much. The alcohol content's more out of balance with the other. You're looking for good acidity so it doesn't fall flat on the finish. Usually good acidity on the finish gives it more length, and a nice bright finish could be a bit of a mineral finish as well, like on a lot of the wines like Chablis. Sometimes there's like a saline flavor on the finish, so a little bit salty. Those types of things, if they're in balance, are great. Also, the body of the wine, if it's full-bodied and things like that. There's a lot of things to look for, but balance is key for sure. Also, you don't want any defects with the wine. So if there's specific odors coming out of it, like if it smells like a musty basement type smell, then there's a fault with it. Sometimes things can smell like really sulfuric. And so there's a lot of different things to keep in mind. Sometimes wine is just too young to drink too if it's coming from a really good area and it has aging potential. Sometimes like if it's too young, it might not taste very good. So it's good to know how long to age certain wines as well.
Okay, I'm going to be studying wine more too. Okay, so is there a wine that gave you an aha moment, or a wine that instigated you to want to explore more about wine?
Well, there's several, but there's one that stands out from right before I started getting into the idea of wanting to take wine courses and things like that. And it was a wine that my friend brought over, and it's called Chateau Potel is the winery, and it was a Chardonnay, and it's out of Mount Veeder in California. It's a French winemaker and owner, and he's actually from Bordeaux, but he moved to California, and it was a so it had natural yeast and it was unfiltered, and it was from 2005, and it seemed like a really elegant Chardonnay. It had some viscosity, but it wasn't bogged down and buttery. It was just delicious. It really let the grapes come through, like the natural viticulture practices really enhanced what was happening in nature in the wine and not being tampered with by different things. And I just loved it. And it just inspired me to want to learn more.
I just had some this past weekend in Lake Oswego that was it was just wonderful Oregon wine. And I just, you have to taste that. And I know you've been here, so you have to come.
Was that at Serene?
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So they also have a winery in Burgundy.
Yes, I knew that. I was with Brazilian people there too. So yeah, so I didn't hear all of it because the sommelier was talking, but he was talking about the wine from France. So they have one in France too. That's interesting. The Oregon wine is wonderful too. So have you been to the one in France?
No, I met The CFO, though, when I was living in Bone, and he gave me his card, Evan Karp, I believe his name is, and he mentioned, I believe, if I can remember this far back, that the couple, I think, is originally from Minnesota, and they sold a business and moved to Oregon and set up a winery, and then now they're in Burgundy as well. I believe that's the story.
And yeah. So when were you in McMinnville? You were here because you have some pictures of that.
That
That's
was
close to me, so
that was
you can
in
come back and we'll
Yeah, I
go.
definitely want to come back. It was so lovely. I had such a nice visit. I loved the wines, and there's similarities with the terroir, and different producers are French from Burgundy there too. Douin has that, and then I really loved a lot of the wines. I loved White Rose. I loved DuPont, Mesara. They're all awesome.
Okay, so when you come back, we'll go together. And then Heidi lives in McMinnville, who I've been posting also. So I've posted some of her photos and things too. Okay, it's not easy to plan the perfect wine vacation because there are so many regions to see, and each region has its own charms. What do you recommend? You've talked about some of them, but what do you recommend in terms of a wine vacation and what they have to offer?
Depends on the things you're interested in. Like if you really want to do a summer trip and add on going to the Mediterranean, things like that, Provence and Bandol would be a nice option. Bandol is in the Provence area, and then Cassis is right there too, the city. It's like a port town, and they're just lovely. And there's like these little coves. They're called calanques in French, and you can do little boat tours in them. You can do hikes. You can also go to Calanque, I think it's called San Miguel, and have lunch right there. There's a little restaurant. It's really charming. And then you can hit some of the different wineries. Bandol's right on the water. It's like amphitheater shape around the water. And they have some very unique wines based off Mourvèdre, which is a varietal that you don't see that often. So it's pretty exciting. So that would be one. The other, if you're not so interested in being by the water, in the springtime, if you wanted to go skiing, you could do the Rhone and then do a quick trip over to the Alps and go skiing. In Burgundy, it would be more about the wines in the museum of the Les Hospices de Beaune, or you could go in November for the Vente aux Enchères, which is an auction that takes place. It's a really famous auction that takes place every year in Burgundy, where they auction off barrels of their most expensive wines, and people come from all over to see that. I got to do a mini version in Nuit Saint-Georges, and they do that one in March. So got to experience that in 2016 when I was there. But there's all different kinds of things you can think about. So you can do it around an event or a time. You can do it around where you want to go afterwards. You can do it around just what your interests are in general, or if there's just a wine that you're super passionate about and you want to know more about that region, that's another way to approach it. They all have something else to offer other than wine too, or things to complement the wine, like the culinary experience or cultural, or visiting different parts of the landscape, doing bike tours, things like that.
Oh, gosh, that sounds great. So let's talk a little bit. So we're both international travelers. So I guess I've been to many, many places, but I've been to Italy 12 times and I've been to Brazil 4 times. I can do the Brazilian trips also. So let's talk a little. I have some very funny culture shock stories. So do you want to talk a little bit about some of your culture shock stories that you've experienced traveling internationally?
Sure. When I first moved to Toulouse during my undergrad, I think was probably the biggest culture shock that I've had. And it was because I was not used to speaking French all day and hearing French. And I had a headache for about a month straight. And then once that subsided, things got easier and it was fun. But it was a shock going from driving everywhere in the US to then walking about 12 miles a day minimum. And so I had like blisters and things on my feet, but I wanted to see everything, so I didn't want to stop. I just kept walking around. And I guess one of the things that shocked me was when I bought a drum and I was playing it with some friends, and this person came up and like grabbed it out of my hands and stole it and ran away. And so I was like chasing after him, and I tried
Oh
to like
no.
stop him by like doing a Bruce Lee kick, and then I twisted my ankle and sprained my ankle. So yeah,
Well,
that
that's
was my.
awful. That'd be the worst thing. And then it looks like you did it. It's like, oh no. In a foreign country, no less.
So that was a moment that I was like, what am I doing? But after that, it got a lot better. And then now it's more the reverse. I get culture shock when I have to leave and go home. And then I'm like, oh, I don't want to go home yet because I
I
love
do that
Europe.
too. I used to cry when I came home because I kind of think I have past lives there or something, and I come home and it's like, oh, this isn't where I'm supposed to be. I'm supposed to be over there. So,
Exactly.
and then this year I'm traveling to Brazil, and you guys get to watch the fun of that.
That's amazing. Oh, I'd love to do that. I
Brazil,
still haven't been
actually,
to South Africa or South America because
I've
my
been
Peru trip got canceled.
it's not necessarily a wine trip, but it's much more of an outdoor adventure type trip. So there's a lot of things. There's a lot of opportunity in Brazil too to do international trips, to go to the beaches. I've been to some of the most fabulous beaches in my life in South America. So let's talk
Sounds
quickly
awesome.
about COVID and some of the silver linings for you, or what's happened with you during COVID, and how have you repositioned yourself?
So I guess first and foremost, it was just a period where I was able to reflect on where I have come from, how much I've accomplished, where I want to take things next. So that was helpful in that sense. I also learned a lot of new skills like teaching online and using different platforms for teaching, and using different platform for Vinaya Love, and using more Zoom calls and Skype calls within my business, and just reaching out on different forms of social media that I hadn't used previously, things like that to get the word out, and just using time to learn. I'm always wanting to learn more about wine, and I could learn new things about wine every day and never know everything about wine when I die. So, I mean, it's just there's so much to learn. That's one thing I love about it, and with COVID, it gave me some time to do that, and to re-examine where I want to take things and implement new skills, I guess is the main thing. I also had surgery during that time, so I didn't feel like I was missing out so much in the recovery time. And now I'm feeling great, had the time to heal and recuperate, so ready to go again.
And I think for me, I'm an extreme extrovert and I like being with people. And so I have not ever had this much time to myself my entire life for self respecting, and then creating new things. And I think some of the things I learned here was I'm a public speaker anyway, but it is intimidating to just go for it and start doing live video, especially, there's so many things we worry about, looking silly and all those kinds of things. And it's a great way to enhance your public speaking skills and as well as speak to people all over the world. So it's really nice to interview people in Italy and South Africa. And it's just a really wonderful way to meet people too. So the other thing I wanted to ask you is what are some of your tips for success? What do you think are what makes someone successful? What are your tips for success?
Well, my mottos are start and the pressure will be off. Because if you let your mind get to, you might not start, and you might not take the risks that it takes to be successful. So starting right away, and takes the pressure off, and you can keep going. And then no matter how slow things are transforming or moving forward, don't stop because they're still moving forward, and just keep the faith and keep doing. Every little thing adds up and can lead to more contacts or can lead to a new experience or a new opportunity. So just keep going. And then also being the wine trade can be intimidating if you allow it to, but don't allow it to, because just for women in general, I'm speaking because it is a male dominated industry, but women are doing amazing things in wine every day, and just believe in yourself and believe you can do it. And, every day decide what goals you want to accomplish and go get them. And so
And I noticed one of the quotes you chose was Henry Ford. And one of the things, I post a lot of quotes from leaders, and usually I'll post something about the person. And one of the things I'm seeing consistently from these people that are incredibly successful is, how did you achieve this? Like, maybe even, I think it was Omar Sadat that changed the culture of Egypt, or Mahatma Gandhi. How does someone do this? And consistently with their thoughts. And then the quote that you chose too was, your thoughts create your reality. And one of the things that Ford did was, I have a book that I was reading, and it was discussing that. I think he wanted I may say this incorrectly, but a 6-cylinder engine or 8-cylinder engine, and it didn't exist. And he had a team of people, and they kept repeatedly failing to produce what he wanted, and he sat there and did it until he produced what he wanted, and so he could create this vehicle. And I think persistence is one of the key things of, don't give up. Keep going forward regardless if you understand the how, and generally the how shows up, as we all know, and sometimes it shows up in a more delightful way than we ever could have thought. So the last thing here is, I want to ask you is, how do people, if someone wants to find you or they want to talk to you about tours, we've got your handles here. So here are 2 ways. I'll post that right there. But how would someone go about locating you or finding you to discuss your tours?
So just contacting me with a direct message on Instagram, or you can email me through my website. My website is www.vinelegance.com. My email is tara@vinelegance.com. So those are ways that you could contact me, and then we can set up a phone call or a Zoom call or whatever you'd like to do to discuss options, and find out how many people you'd like to come with and different interests that you have, and just kind of get to the bottom of a custom tour. That would be wonderful for you. So any of the Twitter, Instagram, LinkedIn, I'm on LinkedIn as well. Any of those avenues would be great, or an email through my website.
And what's your favorite digital platform? What's your favorite digital platform, and what works for you and what doesn't?
I really like Instagram for just posting about wine and which wines that I like, things like that. I love LinkedIn for networking and making contacts within the industry. That's how we came to know each other. And I found it's really helpful as far as finding out things about the industry and things like that as well. Facebook is great too. You can post different articles in there, and have contact with friends and family. So there's a lot of different positives. Facebook is very popular for business and things like that. So I've got a Van Elegance Facebook account and a Vinaya Love Canada Facebook account, and then my personal, which is Tara Abernathy. So all different ways. But yeah, I'm liking Facebook a bit more now. But I love Instagram and I love LinkedIn a lot too. So
I'm currently running 5 or 6 digital platforms, which is really, there are companies that think people can do this on their lunch break, and it generally is a full-time job. It's particularly if you invent a television show that goes on every day of the week. So
definitely.
So Time to Wine is a live broadcast. So in closing, Time to Wine is a live broadcast on the 2nd and the 4th Monday of the month at 9 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. Interviewing experts in wine, social media marketing, leadership, and marketing. The live stream broadcast is featured on the 1st and 3rd Friday of the month at 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. It is leaning heavily toward a live broadcast on a weekly basis. So as soon as my queue is rounded up, I'll start doing this on a weekly basis, and happy to do that. So thank you so much, Tara. It was so fun to talk to you from Is it sunny in Minnesota? Sunny Minnesota?
It's sunny today. It
And it's
is.
sunny in Oregon too.
Oh,
And,
fabulous.
and those of us that travel to South America have a perpetual tan. Or Italy also too. So thank you so much. And I'll
Thank
do
you,
our
Jessica.
little
I
closing
really
here
appreciate it.
and end the broadcast. And I'll be right with you. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.